There's a real estate strategy that wealthy investors use all the time. Not influencers, not gurus, actual high net worth operators. It's boring, it's legal, and it's incredibly effective. They rarely talk about it publicly because it doesn't sell courses and it doesn't sound exciting at first. It's called Refi Till You Die. Most people think it only works if you own massive apartment buildings or commercial real estate, and that's wrong. Today I'm going to show you how regular short-term rental investing can use a version of this same exact playbook. This is how the little guy can keep assets, recycle capital, and build your portfolio over time. Let's get into it on today's episode. Hey everyone, my name is Garrett Brown. I'm the resident Bigger Pockets short-term rental expert and a short-term rental investor myself with over $1.5 million in assets. This video is going to be about how you can actually take advantage of the tax codes out there that all of the wealthy investors know and us little people haven't been taught properly. And if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to show you the one thing that actually keeps this strategy long-term. Most people might not make a home run on their first deal. How you get to that home run status is following these simple guidelines for the rest of your journey. Let's break it down. You buy an asset. You improve that asset. You increase the quality of that asset. You keep that asset. You find ways to recycle the capital out of it without selling. And then you buy more and repeat.
You buy an asset. You improve that asset.
You're not selling, you're not triggering capital gains tax, and you're not constantly resetting your portfolio. You are using debt and tax strategy intentionally. This is standard behavior in commercial real estate. Short-term rentals can kind of fall into that same asset class, give or take a few caveats. This is why it works for short-term rentals. Short-term rentals offer one massive advantage. You can improve revenue faster than any other type of real estate asset class. Better pricing, better photos, better amenities, better guest experience, all of these things will increase the rental rate that you can get every single month. It's very hard pressed to do that with long-term rentals. You don't have to wait years for a rent increase. You can make that increase yourself with some simple upgrades. This operational control is what makes short-term rentals powerful to get that cash flow leveraged into your next project. But this strategy only works if you buy value-add properties. If you're buying a turnkey rental that has all the bells and whistles already, you're going to be very hard-pressed to be able to refinance at a rate anytime soon that makes sense with the equity you have. That means properties with underutilized cosmetic finishes, outdated interiors, bad mechanical systems, and simply nothing aesthetic to it that would increase the value for a short-term rental operator. If your deal is already perfect when you buy it, there's nothing to really upgrade or recycle. This is simply going to be called the burr-stir method. You buy the property, you rehab it, you rent it out as a short-term rental or get it going in that direction, and then you refinance it out based on the upgrades you have and lenders that understand the short-term rental market. Once you get it into an operational state, you can get something called a DSCR loan, a debt service coverage ratio loan, and that loan only cares how much the property income potential is even there. I'm not going to get into the nuances of DSCR loans, but do talk with a lender out there that knows these type of loans and is investor friendly. Bigger Pockets has several different lenders on their website that you can go through the lender finder to find one exactly that knows what investors need to operate in this kind of capacity. Now, I've talked several times too about the short-term rental tax loophole, which it's not a loophole, it's just in the tax code. And I will link several videos in the description below that go way further into it and where I talk with several CPAs about how you're able to run a thing called a cost segregation study on a short-term rental and actively wipe out your W-2 taxes. There's some caveats to that though. It's not as plain and dry as you probably think it is, but it's a lot easier to qualify for something like this on the short-term rental side than it is the long-term rental side. If you wipe out your tax bill and get a massive tax refund coming your way because you did this strategy properly, you'll be able to take out this cash out refinance money or even a tax refund that comes back to you at the end of the year and reinvest it back into another property. The cash out refinance is going to be a tax-free loan that you're able to use and go into your next place. Any other type of income that you make is going to be taxed. But those cash out refinances, that is just a loan and it's not taxable income. Your first short-term rental is probably going to be a little tuition money, basically, where you're going to learn a lot. You might not have a slam dunk on the first one you do, but once you realize how powerful this strategy is, that you can take the same burr concept that Bigger Pockets has been teaching for years on the long-term rental side and do that with short-term rentals, you're going to be able to start the process of refi until you die and keep continuously improving assets, buying more assets, and making all of your assets work in something called portfolio architecture. So here's a quick important reality check though. Most short-term rental units are going to be between 1 and 4 units and are still going to be classified as residential real estate. That means that even if you're increasing the income and keep continuously improving the property, at some point you're going to get a cap as to what it actually could be worth. All the other properties in your area are still all that matter. Now, the lender might be satisfied with how much money it's going to make, but they're still going to have a residential appraisal on the property. And if it comes in a little low because you didn't buy right and do the correct value adds, this method isn't going to work. So even with residential comps, strong improvements can push you to the top of that appraisal limit and help you out, but just make sure you're very aware of the comparables in the area if you are doing 1 to 4 units, single family or small multifamilies out there. Get a good real estate agent, understand the comps, and understand where the value is added into the property that you're going to purchase. Now, I kind of briefly went into this about the short-term rental tax loophole, but once you materially improve that property, if you actively are managing it more than anybody else on the property, I believe you need to work on the property at least 100 hours a year and work more than anyone else that deals with this property. And that can be a wide range of things from messaging to dropping off supplies and a few other things within there. But doing these strategies, you're going to be able to then work with a CPA that understands this and really reduce your tax bill or almost get paid quite a bit of money just by running these cost segregation studies on the new improvements that you've added to it. So once you do this bonus depreciation cost segregation study, a lot of big words in there, you'll be able to offset from your losses of your active income that you have. That means you get to legally keep more of your cash instead of sending it to the IRS and roll that into your next investment. That means you can do the same thing on the next property. I'm not a CPA, so go to the Bigger Pockets Marketplace. They have investor-friendly CPAs there as well as agents, lenders like I mentioned earlier. These are going to be the people that can really guide you in the path to go correctly. Because I'm sure there's going to be a couple of things I say that I don't fully understand because this is why I pay someone that is highly qualified in this. But these are basic principles you need to understand. This is how you're going to be able to reinvest into assets that truly keep moving the needle for you. The goal is not max leverage on your cash out refinances. The goal is longevity. You only want to be able to get the money out that you need to roll into the next property and make sense from a financial standpoint that you're going to be able to maintain going forward with the rental income you're expecting. This strategy is quiet. It's a long-term thing. There's no quick exits with this, but this is how you're going to be able to keep building the portfolio without having to give all your money to Uncle Sam every single year and then claw back and start from scratch. The really cool thing about short-term rentals for me is I kind of feel like it's the gateway drug to either going by businesses or starting to buy bigger commercial businesses like RV parks, boutique hotels, things in that area. And that's really when you can get into the refi until you die strategy that is completely next level because commercial real estate assets are based on the net operating income. It's not like residential where whatever your appraiser comes back at in the nearby properties, you're going to be in that area. So you have to do a ton of value add and get an amazing deal early on. Commercial real estate has similar principles where you still want a great deal, still want a ton of value add. But when you take it to a local bank or an SBA lender or many of these other business lenders out there, all they care about is how much the property makes in revenue and how low your expenses are to get to that revenue, your net operating income. They have things called a cap rate, which I'm not going to go into that today because it's a little intimidating and scary and trying to figure out what a cap rate even means sometimes. But your cap rate with your net operating income is how you're going to increase the value of a commercial real estate asset. That is the big goal as short-term rental host. Hopefully, we really want to drive into the boutique hotel space, the economies of scale of commercial real estate, learning the business very early on, and then keep making those big jumps to get to the goals that you really want to in the long-term wealth you're trying to build. This last tip I'm going to give you, though, is the one that really keeps this strategy going long-term. You don't want to over-leverage yourself. You don't want to stop investing into your property and let it die off a hill because you went and got shiny object syndrome and kept adding more and more properties and not focusing on the ones that were already making you a ton of money. Don't get some money and go spend it on a massive vacation yacht somewhere and don't have reserves and you can't even keep the upgraded mechanical things in line for future guest use to really keep that profitability you need. When you're bringing in bigger loans, when you're adding on more debt to your properties, you don't want to take on a high amount of extra debt and your income isn't keeping up with that, with the improvements you're adding to it, this is where smart upgrades and being very frugal with your money, any money you're getting back, putting back into assets and properties and not bloating your lifestyle to have a hard time keeping up with the new money that you're starting to make. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lender. This isn't a hack. It is just real discipline and leaning on people that really know these type of skill sets better than you. A great investor-friendly lender, a great investor-friendly CPA, and a great investor-friendly real estate agent are going to make this type of operation seamless for you so that way you can focus on the things that matter, long-term financial freedom for you and your family. If you have any questions, this was a little bit of an overview. If you want any more specifics or a real property case breakdown or a 5-year breakdown of how this can work for you, let me know in the comments. Let me know anything you want me to cover going forward, and hit that subscribe button if you made it this far. I appreciate y'all watching, and I think YouTube wants you to watch one of these videos right here. See y'all next time.